I was going to buy a laptop eventually, but because of this, I thought of buying it earlier.
Just heard the news and got a little confused about whether I should buy a laptop now or later. I'm still figuring it out.
So when I heard about this, the first thing that came to my mind was that the prices might get affected.
I don't know. I've been hearing a lot of news about this. I'm hoping that prices don't increase too much.
Several consumers are hastening their decision to purchase a laptop. Turns out, the demand for laptops and tablets across online and offline channels has seen a spike in recent days. Why? Because of a recent notification by the government which mandates licenses for the import of laptops from November.
But New Delhi has issued a new order today, and it may have a bearing on your next purchase. India has imposed an import restriction on devices like laptops. Companies that sell these gadgets will have to get a license to import.
A move that could prove to be a big blow for the likes of Apple, Samsung, Dell, among others, and force them to boost local manufacturing.
This move has led to some sort of fear that the prices of these devices will go up soon. Given that over 70% of the laptops sold by brands in India are imported, this may be a valid concern. But are prices really set to increase? Will the industry see a shortage of laptops after November when the new rules come into effect? And will this move give a boost to the domestic manufacturing and assembly of laptops? To understand more about this new move by the government and its implications for consumers, brands, and the overall industry, we speak to Pankaj Mohindru, Chairman of industry body India Cellular and Electronics Association, Navkender Singh, Associate Vice President for India at global market intelligence firm the International Data Corporation, and to reporters covering the development at the Economic Times, Ritankar Mukherjee, Shubhrojit Malik, and Kiran Rathi. It is Friday, the 11th of August. I'm Mugdha Variyar from ET Prime, and you're listening to The Morning Brief. On August 3rd, the government stunned the IT hardware sector when it notified that any import of laptops, tablets, and personal computers would be immediately restricted and that their import will be allowed only with a valid license. Some exceptions the government made were for imports of only a single device or for the purposes of research and testing. This, of course, led to a furor, after which the government decided to give the industry a 3-month breather and deferred the move to November 1st. But this move is expected to cause some chaos in the supply chains of laptop brands and retailers, even though the government has assured that this will not lead to a price hike and that the licenses will be given out easily. Many consumers, nevertheless, are looking to advance the purchase of laptops before the shift to the new regime.
I personally also got some inquiries from my friends and family that should we buy a laptop right now? Now, we were planning to buy in September, October. And they are also responding to the fears of prices going up.
That was Navkender Singh of the International Data Corporation, or the IDC. This spike in laptop sales has also come after a sluggish consumer demand for laptops in recent quarters. In fact, according to the IDC, the notebook category had declined by over 40% year-on-year in the March quarter. My colleague from the Economic Times, Ritankar Mukherjee, who covers the consumer goods and retail space, also reported this week that the fear of a price hike, especially fueled on social media, has led to a spike in sales of laptops at retailers such as Vijay Sales and others.
Mugdha, there has been concern amongst consumers that prices might go up of laptops and tablets once the licensing regime comes, and there could be a shortage as well. So, well, the government has clarified that prices will not go up and they would be giving licenses to the companies within 5 to 10 minutes of their application. and there will be no shortage as such. But as you know, that social media post often creates a lot of this tension and paranoia amongst consumers. So retailers and even some of the e-com companies, they have said that there has been a spike over in this last weekend after the announcement than the previous one, which would be going up to 25% more sequentially. And they feel that this is purely due to the announcement by the government, because there is no other trigger as such behind this. Of course, the e-com companies have been running the independent sales, but they also see a little bit more marginal spike on demand than what was there before the announcement came.
But while the spike in sales may be driven by the fear of price hikes, IDC's Navkendra Singh feels it may not last too long.
So that might actually fuel some incremental demand, which will come from the consumers. If they were delaying the purchase till November or October, they're saying, let's do it now. What if the laptops or the units are not available at that time? So that's why it's a good news for the brands as well, and the good news for the large format retail players as well, their own stores also. You're right in that. But we don't see that consumer demand is increasing generally because of the use case. We don't see incremental demand coming in that somebody will start using laptops more because of this. Just they're buying more because of the fear of, expected hike in prices.
But is the price really likely to increase once the import restrictions come in November? Industry members and reporters like Ritankar suggest that there may not be a big surge in laptop prices, at least for the first few months.
What the brands are saying that there will not be any increase in price unless the government restricts imports. So I spoke to a CEO of a very large computer and tablet manufacturer, and what he's categorically said that if the government makes licensing norms very difficult and it becomes difficult to get the license, then they have to move the production to India. Right now, around 30-35% of the demand is done locally and the rest is imported. And if they have to move the production to India, then despite the revised PLI benefits by the government of around 5% benefit that the government has announced, despite that, there will be a cost disadvantage as compared to imports because there is no component ecosystem in India and it will take several years to build it up. So if the government is not very liberal with licenses, there will definitely be a price hike. But as we know, the government has clarified that they will be quite prompt with licenses, and the government has said that there will be no increase in prices. But the companies are still a little skeptical till they actually face the situation on ground from November. As of now, they have said they will increase the imports to ensure there is no shortage till festive season when demand typically goes up. And they will ensure that the inventory is there even till the end of this year, at least till December. So the real impact of shortage and all might be felt only in next year, Jan, when the fresh imports come under licensing.
IDC's Navkendra Singh reiterates this point.
This time, August, September, October, November, is about 40% sales of laptops happen during this time from a consumer point of view and more for other devices as well. Now, enterprises keep on having refreshes. What will happen now is, since the respite has been given for the next 3 months, all the brands will bring a lot of supplies now in the next 3 months. So a lot of billing will happen. Inventory levels will again go up. We expect it will happen so that they are able to mitigate some of the demand which is coming and they don't have to increase the prices for the demand which comes around November, December, January as well. And anyway, after November, it goes to a lean period from consumer. By that time, they will have some restricted import license with some of the partners. They should be able to meet the demand. But from a consumer point of view, we feel that, till about December, January, the stock will not be a problem if they are able to bring a lot of supplies now. Beyond that, after January, February, if there is still a problem of restricted import license, they're not able to get, the prices will increase. But we don't feel that the prices increase is going to help the brands because anyway, the demand is not so high right now.
But why has the government decided to take this step? The official track is that the government wants to reduce import dependence and push the domestic manufacturing of laptops and tablets. Earlier this year, the government had introduced a production-linked incentive scheme, or the PLI scheme, worth 17,000 crore rupees for boosting the domestic manufacturing of laptops, tablets, all-in-one PCs and other such devices. But government officials have also emphasized that this move is aimed at ensuring that the industry uses trusted and verified systems. Pankaj Mohindru, the chairman of the India Cellular and Electronics Association, an industry body which represents the leading electronics brands and manufacturers, also highlighted the need for using trusted products.
This notification is not meant to encourage manufacturing or anything like that. It is essentially that we are able to work with trusted supply chain partners. And that's why this import was restricted, that you need to get a license and so on. We do have challenges of refurbished products and gray market in these products also, which is not insignificant, because India is becoming a very large data consumption country. And the digital citizens are increasing. We have large number of digital customers now. So it is important to have good trusted products which do not infringe citizens' privacy or the requirement of security for the nation.
But the unsaid reason behind the government's move seems to be the usual suspect: China. India imported laptops and tablets worth $8.8 billion in FY23, but around $5 billion worth of these products came from China. Kiran Rathi, my colleague at ET who tracks the telecom and electronics sector, says that there have been some security concerns about the devices imported from the neighboring country.
Yeah, the concern is there because if we just go back 2.5 years, if you see in telecom equipment also, the government has said that China's Huawei and ZTE, they have not been allowed to roll out 5G networks. So the main security threat was, that something can be penetrated in the networks and it can put the entire network to a stop. So if there is a malware in, say, one device, and if the device is connected to internet, that the malware can spread to n number of devices, and it can put the entire security architecture at risk. So there is obviously trust deficit between India and China, and it is one of the reasons why government wants that the maximum manufacturing should happen in India and there should be least reliance on imports.
I asked Navkender if this is a geopolitical move as well, apart from being just a boost for domestic manufacturing.
So I would say both are linked. I mean, one gave push to the another, saying that we want to decrease the dependence on China and at the same time project India as a base where you can manufacture and export from here, because we can provide you infrastructure, we can provide you incentives, skill set, everything else can be done here. And to be fair to the government, we have a success story, or part of the success story at least, that about 90% plus phones which are being sold in India and now exports also happening are assembled in India, except the premium ones, a few of them. Even the Fold 5s and Flip 5s are being produced here only. But at least most of the phones are being assembled here. So we have a success story to say there. And I think it's also a financial thing also, if you go into deep into it, balance of payments and a lot of imports. The imports from China is not decreasing. And that's because component cost is increasing. So that's why if you are importing a lot of components from there, and you have to start adding value here as well. So I think that's also one of the things, that rather than completely build unit, you start importing, or you restrict to importing components and start assembling here, start adding value here. I think it's a mix of everything, not entirely on geopolitical. It's also that we want to project India as a manufacturing destination, which I think government has been, with a partial success, been able to do that. Obviously, a lot can be done and is being done.
But now, the most important question. Will the less than 3-month breather be enough for the electronics industry to realign to the new import license regime? Especially given that over 70% of laptops sold in the country are imported as completely built units, or CBUs. I asked IDC's Navkender Singh.
We have to see the numbers here. So what's happening is, to give you a context, about 2 million, about 20 lakh laptops are shipped or sold or built by the entire ecosystem in India every quarter. Out of these 20 lakh, about 14-15 lakh are completely built unit imported in India. Now, it's a matter of glass half full or glass half empty. Somebody can say that 15 lakh are imported. How will we scale up? Absolutely fair point. But I'll also say that the ecosystem is making 5, 6 laptops here in India. So that means the basic infrastructure and the basic expertise and the skill set and everything is in place. The scaling up is an issue. Scaling up always takes about 9 months to 12 months, even with current infrastructure. So that's the time it will take. Now, about more than 50% of the desktops are already assembled or made in India. Components still obviously come out of China or other places. So desktop manufacturing is happening. About a quarter of laptops are happening. The scaling up is an issue. Now, there are two things. If the government would not have given any respite, then it would have been a big problem, both from supply point of view and how to meet the demand which is coming in this festive season, at least from a consumer point of view, and the big enterprises also, because they always have orders, the Indian offices of bigger MNCs. So that would have been an issue. Now, October 31st, now obviously two options and two line of thoughts will run parallelly for all the vendors and all the brands and the ecosystem players. They will really hasten the process of scaling up now, so that 6 months, 9 months down the line, they're able to produce more without increasing. They don't have to keep on importing and increase the price, even though a restricted import license. But in the meanwhile, at the time the scaling up happens, which will take a few months or a few quarters, beyond October 31st, the vendors or the brands, by that time, we believe most of these will be able to get some partners on board to have a restricted import license, so that they're able to meet whatever demand is coming in the leaner months from November to March 2024 times.
But Pankaj Mohindro of the India Cellular and Electronics Association believes that there will be no disruption to the industry.
There will be absolutely no disruption whatsoever in availability of products to consumers, to the trade, and there will be no disruption whatsoever for the industry also. We have sufficient time. These FAQs will be answered. The system will be very well calibrated. The supply chain management system. This will not cause any disruption to any of the brands. And if the brands don't have any, challenge, then the rest of the ecosystem, the EMS companies, the sub-assembly component suppliers, etc., they will also not have any challenge.
But even while the industry body has said that there will be no impact on the industry and on the prices of laptops, it has sought some clarity from the government on the implementation.
There are various questions which come to people's mind. People are not clear. For example, one was that are capital goods covered in this? Because many capital goods now have a desktop or something like a laptop attached to that. So we hope that they would not get impacted. And small and big issues like that. So the whole list of FAQs will be crafted. We have already crafted a draft one that we discussed with Mighty first. First, we had 8 questions that's already presented. And if something more comes up, because we have time, so all possibilities, what can be the possible pitfalls are going to be discussed. And the industry and trade is welcome to come up with their inputs. So that process is going on.
Will you be able to take us through any of the main points that you've discussed with Meti?
Like, what is the validity of the license from the date of approval? Open question, right?
Okay.
Then whether a single or multiple licenses are required for different ports. Is it one license for the entire country or there are different ones for different ports? Clarification on IT hardware items that are essential part of capital goods. Are they exempt from import licensing? Another one is we need a clarification that movement of goods from SEZ to DTA and EOU to DTA are exempt from import licensing. Because this could be a possible interpretation also that since these are considered to be foreign territories, they are not, they will come under this regime. Then clarification if the license needs to be obtained on a model-wise basis, or is it a macro number license? Things like that.
My colleague from ET, Shubhrojit Malik, who tracks the mobile and electronic space, also says that the industry has sought an extension of up to a year to be ready for the new license regime.
So I was speaking to one of the industry executives around this issue, and they had a meeting with the government where they told them specifically, it takes at least 9 months to a year to set up assembly lines and get all the ecosystem in place and get your supply chain in order to start manufacturing locally, especially, these laptops and servers and ultra form factor computers. Because as more and more they shrink in size, the more complicated it gets to manufacture. So there's also a need to train the staff. There's a need to, import the machinery for them. So all these things take a lot of time. So that's what they've asked the government to, like a 3-month window is not enough. They need at least a year to sort of set up their manufacturing base and start making in India. A bigger problem in that is the fact that, and the industry has also highlighted that to the government, is the fact that India does not yet have the capacity of making the high-end, high-precision computers and PCs and laptops and servers. So they are requesting the government to sort of, have that provision in the notification that, these high-end products can at least be imported freely, while a restriction can be placed on the entry-level and the mid-range products. That way, for which the capacity can be created or is still there already with the manufacturers in India.
The new import license regime could also become an issue in India's global agreements and even at the World Trade Organization, the Economic Times reported this week. I asked Shubhrojit what this could mean for India.
Now, the problem with IT hardware is that India is part of this agreement called ITA. It's Information Technology Agreement, which notifies the fact that, between the countries that make these products and the countries that are importing them, there should be no duties imposed. So it's basically free imports without the requirement of a license. But suddenly the government came and said these imports is going to be restricted and you're going to require a valid license for them. So that sort of change happened almost overnight, which is what the government tried to do. But then there was a lot of consultation after that. Immediately after that, they extended the deadline of imposing this restriction to November 1st. So now they have a 3-month time frame to figure out how they want to go ahead with it, whether they still want to import their products or will they be part of the production-linked incentive scheme that has been rolled out for IT hardware and start making them locally. So these are the calls that these brands now have to take.
The move to the new regime is expected to be disruptive for many laptop brands. But one brand that has no manufacturing presence in India for laptops is the world's biggest company, Apple. Apple's MacBooks and iPads are becoming increasingly popular in India. But will the new licensing regime disrupt their stocks in the country? I asked my colleague Ritankar Mukherjee.
So Apple may face the biggest issue if the government is very strict with licensing because they are completely dependent on imports for their MacBooks and tablets. They do not produce anything in India right now. And whatever production plans that we know, they have no plans to produce MacBooks in India. It's a very high-end product. And of course, unofficially, what they say is that India does not have the technical capability right now to produce it. As far as tablets are concerned, they have evaluated it. They are still evaluating it. And they say, again, unofficially, that it's a process of production evolution. And after smartphones and smartwatches and the audio products, tablets might be the next product to come into production. But surely they haven't planned it for this year. So what Apple does is something we have to look out for, because they would really be at a disadvantage as compared to others like Samsung and Lenovo, who does have a local production in India. But as we know, they are getting a lot of support from government because of the smartphone production. So the industry expects they would be least impacted as far as licenses are concerned, but there would be definitely pressure on them to at least start manufacturing of their tablets, if not this year, but sometime next year or in the near future.
Another brand, a domestic one, has been in the news for its newly launched laptop. Reliance is the newest entrant in the laptop segment and launched the JioBook last week, pricing it aggressively. There has, of course, also been a lot of social media speculation around the timing of the JioBook launch and the notification by the government, with several netizens calling the government's move an attempt to boost Reliance. But incidentally, Reliance's JioBooks are also currently being manufactured in China, at least as per the product's details online. Reports suggest that the company is in talks with contract manufacturers such as Dixon to make the laptops in India. But will this move in any way boost the GeoBook, especially as this is Reliance's second attempt at launching the device? I ask Ritankar.
Despite the new notebook, they're still a very marginal player. They are certainly not amongst the top 5, and neither are consumers looking at a really value offering right now. Whatever has been the consumer trend, they are looking for performance more than price, and the Reliance products are really at the value segment. So we don't know how much market share Reliance will get and how much will they be able to drive the market. There is still doubt on that. But definitely this will benefit the Indian companies because there is no restriction on the import of the components. You don't need any license for that. It's only for the finished product. And the government is quite liberal on the component imports because they want to promote the finished good manufacturing in India.
Both Apple and Reliance did not comment. Will the government's push to impose import licenses on laptops actually give a boost to manufacturing in India? ICEA's Pankaj Mohendru thinks so.
We are wanting to grow this industry from $3.5 billion currently to $25 billion and then to $100 billion. We want to be the major stakeholder in global IT hardware manufacturing. Now, can this thought be implemented in an environment where you are trying to constrict things? It is not possible. You have to be very encouraging, very motivating. You have to become the most competitive nation in the world, and you have to hold the industry's hand, at least in the first few years where you are moving from very fragile manufacturing ecosystem to a robust manufacturing ecosystem. So that is going to take some time. That will in fact ensure that we have more robust and a more liberal supply chain available. Because when you are producing domestically at a scale, the availability is always better. When you are importing, you will keep it on a very tight working capital management system because of involvement of letter of credit and banking facilities, etc. So in the medium term and long term, as we are switching more and more to domestic manufacturing, it will be good for the supply chain and availability of products. Now, let me cite an example. In 2014, 78% of our mobile phones were imported, our domestic requirement. Today, we are exporting 90,000 crores worth of mobile phones. So the whole situation has turned on its head. The same thing you will find getting replicated in laptops and tablets and desktops.
For now, however, it looks like India will continue to be the place for assembly of the devices as most components are still being imported. Do industry members say that this is the first step towards becoming a manufacturing hub?
This is a collective wish of our citizens, of our trade, of the industry and the government that India should be a substantial electronic manufacturing nation, starting with achieving $300 billion. I'm happy to advise you that we crossed $100 billion milestone in 2023, a growth of over 300% compared to 2015. Assembly versus manufacturing, you see, at every stage, there is an activity which happens. You sell your product, that is sales. You display your product. Every value-adding activity is something to be respected. And China is a massive assembler of products. And assembling is where highest deployment of manpower is there, which is what a country like India needs the most.
This is not the first time that India is looking to boost domestic production by restricting imports. The move to raise import duty on smartphones and incentivize local production has paid off, with the government claiming last year that India had become the second largest producer of phones in the world after China. Many are also pointing to successful protectionist policies by other countries, such as the import curbs by South Korea to boost car manufacturing in the 70s. Of course, protectionist measures don't always work out. India recently burnt its fingers when it comes to the import of solar panels. Reports suggest that the government is considering cutting the import tax on solar panels to make up for a shortfall in the domestic production. With import restrictions set to come about for laptops and tablets, some have raised questions whether this is a move back towards the dreaded license Raj and whether it will impact the ease of doing business. Some also argue that this is the government's renewed push to boost the PLI 2.0 scheme for laptops and tablets, with the first one receiving a poor response. With the industry now seeking more clarity and more time, it is to be seen if the government sticks to its stance or does a Ctl+Z. That's all in this episode. I'm Mugdha Variyar and you're listening to The Morning Brief. This episode was brought to you by producer Surohini Jain and sound editor Indranil Bhattacharjee, and executive producers Anupriya Nair, Anirban Chaudhary and Arijit Burman. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, do share it on your social media networks. A new episode of the Morning Brief podcast drops every Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. Don't miss it. It streams on Amazon Prime Music, JioSaavn, Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts. And of course on ET's own audio platform, ET Play. Have a great weekend ahead. All clips used in this episode belong to the respective owners. Credits are mentioned in the description.